This video introduces the features of Eagle.io that relate to how we use the Ai1 that's built on the DB600. So Eagle.io is a really powerful data collection and data management system for real-time remote monitoring systems, particularly environmental monitoring systems. It's really been built from the ground up to suit time series data for environmental applications. Because of that, we commonly bundle it with our DB600 buoys or AR1 telemetry stations. And it's so when you first want to access it, if you've purchased a DB600, you'll come to the page xylem.eagle.io, and you'll either log in if you've already got credentials because you have other devices under Eagle.io, or you can request access to that will go to Xylem support and grant you access to the station that you're after if you're verified as the owner of that station. So probably the more efficient way, rather than using the request access, is to send an email to the sales staff that you bought the system from. So when the sales staff complete the order, they will pre-configure the Eagle.io for your telemetry system, at which point you should have been invited to have access there. So check your emails to see if you have an invitation from Eagle.io where you can access your workspace, which is the data from your AR1 system. Okay, so assuming that you've got access, this is the basic landing page. So over on the left, we've got our navigation panel, and then we've got our menu at the top that allows us to choose how we want to view the data. And then this is the main window area that updates depending on what view you're currently looking at. So, for instance, this is our workspace. So Xylem CVSG is the workspace we're looking at. We're looking at a site called Ballakera Canal, and we've got an AR1 serial number 15092 installed there. Now, like I said, when you first receive your Eagle.io and AR1 telemetry station, it will most likely be pre-configured for you. We are going to show you the steps to configure the station for you if that hasn't been done, or if you want to do a new station yourself. So on the AR1, you right click and you select properties. Now, the only real parameters to select here are the pack bus address, which is as defined on the product labels of your the box that your AR1 came in, or it is on the label beside the switch in the terminal area on the underside of the AR1. So where we get our URL and our port for addressing, the pack bus address is also defined there. So that will be unique to your station. Now, the other piece of information that we need when connecting is that when the AI1 takes a measurement, it immediately reports back to Eagle.io to say it has a value. So that is like push notifications from your email server. So rather than polling on a slow basis every 15 minutes, in which case you may have missed the most recent value by up to 15 minutes, the AR1 uses a push notification to send data immediately when data has been collected. And the way it does that is it connects back to Eagle.io and it identifies itself based on the modem IMEI. And so that modem IMEI is the hardware signature of the modem built into the AR1. It's a unique number, and that's the number here that we configure under the device ID. So if you're not sure where to access your modem IMEI, you can use devconfig. While you're connected to the station, you can go to the data monitor tab, the public table, which is the real-time information, and you can see the modem IMEI there, which is a number, in this case, ending in 4711. Now, if we go back to Eagle.io, we can see that that is the ID configured for this station. So it is using the right ID for the station that we've set up. So the other parameters that you might want to set up are under the series tab. So the AR1 is all the diagnostic information that the AR1 records about itself to make sure it's operating correctly. Now, your other data tables will appear here, which might include the water quality data table, the SON values data table, the DCS data table. In this case, we've got a level sensor connected. And if you expand out the level table, you can see that we are collecting all the parameters. we've given them sensible names, and we have assigned units for some of those values. Okay. Now, the final tab we want to look at is the time tab. And under the time tab, you define the time zone that the station is located in. So for this station we're looking at, that's actually east coast of Australia under the Brisbane GMT +10 time zone. And by having this button ticked, when the AI1 connects in, Eagle-I will check the time of the AI1, and if it differs from Internet Standard Time or NST using an NTP server, it will automatically update the data logger with the correct time. So it is best to make sure your time zone is set, make sure that button is set, and then your time of your AI1, when the measurements are made in the field, will be synchronized through a network time server. Okay, so they're the steps to configure a station. We will now look at some of the different tools that you've got to view the data that's collected from your station. Okay, so now that we've set up Eagle-I, we'll actually look at how we use the data and how we view the data. So across the top here, we have various buttons to toggle the views in the main window area. Um, the kind of starting view is the map view to see where the station is. Now, if you hover over this, you can then start scrolling through and seeing the values of information that has been stored on site. And you can actually have the icon updated to change color or type depending on alarm conditions based on measurements at site. So map view is useful if you've got a lot of locations. You can filter by layers and filter by certain names, including the satellite view. So the good thing about the satellite view is that the station itself is the location is defined by the GPS measurements recorded, and so we can actually see that that is the GPS data of where that station is located. So with the inbuilt GPS in the AI1, it's really useful that position on the map automatically updates based on GPS data. It's not a static predefined location. If your station moves, such as if your buoy drags the mooring, the location in Eagle-I will update to show you the latest location based on GPS data. So then we can look at the list view. Now, the list view is useful because it shows us the latest data from each parameter. We can scroll through and see things like battery voltage and humidity and temperature and latitude and longitude. And we can scroll down to see the measured information, in which case is a level from a 4 to 20 milliamp level sensor. And we can see that the latest data was recorded at 1:15 and it's currently 1:26. So there will be another measurement coming in roughly 4 more minutes. So that's the list. We can then actually toggle the view to be chart view, and that gives us a very simple chart view of each of the parameters. So things like battery voltage, we might actually want to scroll out to 1 month, and we can see that when the station was installed, we can see the chart view of those measurements in a very quick and easy to understand chart that is very interactive. So as you can see, as I move my mouse, you can see the values updating. So at any point in time, you can move to a point of interest and see that overnight at 5:30 in the morning, the battery voltage reduced to 13.21 volts, which is still excellent charge from the AI1 internal lithium-ion battery. So not only when you hover does it update, but if you click and drag, you can zoom in and you can start to see actual points on the measurement curve. Now, I will show you another tool that's very useful, such as if we scroll down to GPS satellites, we can see here that the GPS satellite is showing that often there's 0 satellites in view. Now, that's because we just power the GPS up and it returns a measurement, location measurement, before it's actually received any satellites. So we know those values are incorrect. So there's a tool in here that allows us to do data editing. So if we toggle that tool on, we can actually then click and drag within this area to highlight the values that we know to be wrong. And we can then go to the delete button and we can delete those records so that those are deleted from the data set. So that is a powerful tool that allows us to remove any erroneous measurements. Now, not only do we have the ability to delete, but if we know that for a little while, the scale was wrong, like a calibration on a sensor might be wrong. Now, this doesn't apply to GPS data, but I'm just showing you how it would work. You would highlight the data, and instead of using the delete button, you can change the value to be set to a specific value, offset by a value, or even rescale by a value. So just say you've got a level measurement in a 4 to 20 milliamp sensor, and you know your calibration was actually for a 0 to 10 meter sensor rather than a 0 to 5 meter sensor. You can rescale those values to give the correct level measurements without having to, like, the historical data can be updated to be a true, accurate record of what actually happened. So the data editing tool is one of those examples where Eagle.io goes, because it's built from the ground up to suit time series environmental data. We know that erroneous measurements can take place in the field, so the data editing tool allows us to correct those erroneous measurements. All right, so I will actually disregard those last batch of changes, but we have saved the batch where we remove the zero values. Okay, so the ability to scroll back in time, the ability to zoom in, those are really good tools within the Eagle environment. It's all very intuitive and relatively easy to use. So that's the chart view. It is also possible to look at the event view. Now, the event view, you know that any event that occurs to the stations in your workspace will have their events recorded in a system that cannot be manipulated. So you can see here that there is a record recently of 120 records being deleted from the GPS satellite in view parameter, and it's associated to the user who did that. So you can filter based on debug levels, on error levels, or info levels, or any of those parameters. And you can see different levels of detail to suit what you're interested in. And you can see that since I updated those records, the device initiated an acquisition, and it updated one record from the AI1 table and two records from the level table, which that update related to 5 parameters. So the event log is really useful for understanding what's happened to your station, when it's happened, who did it, and having the confidence that that event log cannot be manipulated. So it's actually impossible for me to delete anything related to that event. I can't hide the fact that I deleted those records. Okay, so that's a quick look at the basic views, the predefined views. Now, if you find that those predefined views don't suit exactly what you want to do, it is possible to create your own views. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a dashboard, a graphical view of this station using the web environment only. So I right click, I go down to create, I select dashboard, and then this gives me the ability to edit that dashboard. So I am going to add a tile, and I'm going to start with a location because that's kind of the, you want to find out where your data is coming from. And I'm actually going to do 2 location views. You'll see why shortly. So it says here to drag and drop a location or click here to configure. So if I go back up to here and then I click, if I've missed it, go back to the dashboard, and I actually want to choose the location here. I drag that onto the location map, and then it has updated the map to show the location, and I'm going to repeat it over on this one. So I'm going to set up the zoom levels now on this map so that it's a more useful level of zoom. And that shows me where it is off the road and where it's related next to some of the other points of interest, and I'm actually going to use this one at a slightly higher zoom on satellite view so that I can see exactly where that is on the satellite. So it's often useful to have the map view and the satellite view because they do show different information. Now, that's the kind of map tile that I wanted to add. Now I can also add a values list. So I will select the value and then I'll drag that over here. Now you always use these little dots in the corner to resize the, the dash tile that you're interested in. So I would like to have initially the level corrected value up there. I'd like to have the current 4 to 20 milliamp reading up there. I will also have some diagnostic information such as the battery voltage, internal humidity and temperature. So you can see that that's some really useful information to have on a quick view dash. Now, along with that, I might decide that I also want a chart. So I can move my chart into the position that I want it, and I'm going to choose to have the corrector level displayed as a time series value. So it is actually possible to have multiple parameters on a chart, and then you just have to edit your chart. And we actually will get rid of battery voltage because it doesn't have much sense to have level and voltage on the same scale. But if we had two levels from nearby stations, we could have both of those displayed on the same chart. So I'm going to just rename that to be level data. Okay, and that is a basic way of configuring a dashboard. Super simple, really powerful, and if you wanted, you could then also find the dashboard, change the properties of the dashboard, set it up to be public access, copy that URL, and then if you went to another window and looked at that URL, that would give you public access of that information. So if you want to share the data from your site in a URL that's, you can't search for that URL, you need to know the URL, but it is something you can give to allow people to view a specific view of data of your station. They can't see all the data, they can't configure your station, they can't do anything like that, but they can interactively operate with your data. Okay, so public dashboards are really quite useful.